It's no secret that writing can be lonely work, but does it really have to be? Whether you're full-time, part-time, or just starting out, you'll get insights into the tricks, tips, and production habits of writers from every level of the biz. From best-selling authors to those launching their first novels, you're sure to be in the company of friends as we encourage great writers to divulge and share their secrets. This is the Great Writers Share podcast with your host, best-selling author, Daniel Wilcox.
Hello and welcome to episode number 45 of the Great Writers Share podcast with me, Daniel Wilcox, where every week I hijack an hour or so of time from some of the kindest and hardest working writers around today to join me on the show and discuss everything that makes them tick, roar and bounce. Today's date is Tuesday the 21st of July as of recording, and my guest this week is thriller author and writing coach KRISTINA RIENZE. But before we get into the interview, we'll begin with my personal update. In Great Writers Share news, we are fast approaching milestone episode number 50. I've got lots of things whirring in the background, lots of things that are coming into preparation for episode 50 specifically, but some stuff thereafter that I'm going to continue teasing, even though I teased it a few weeks ago. But it's, I don't want to say too much, but there are a lot of things that I'm very, very excited by. It's going to bring a lot more value to the patrons over at patreon.com/Great Writers Share. I believe it will provide more value to all you listeners. It's not going to affect the actual podcast itself. You're still going to hear from fantastic writers every week. It's still going to be interviews and whatnot. But it just means that I think there'll be a lot more for you to enjoy in the long run. So I'm also sowing seeds for what I'm going to do with episode number 50. Need to get my arse in gear because it's fast approaching, but I have some really cool ideas and I think that you're going to enjoy what I do with episode number 50. So that is coming. Episode 50 is a big milestone. My previous podcast that I used to host with Luke Condor was 50 episodes, and then we went on a hiatus that never came back from. So I'm excited to hit episode number 50 and keep ploughing forward. And like I say, lots of good stuff coming your way, so keep peeled for that. In fiction news, chipping away at When Winter Comes, episode 3 as of, if you're listening to this episode live on the day that launches, episode 3 is officially submitted for pre-order. So the pre-order is already live on Amazon, but the files are now uploaded and ready to go. It's been an interesting journey trying to write very, very quickly on top of the other stuff that I'm doing. And essentially, I've rapid released these 3 episodes with my intention of every episode thereafter being a month apart, so I don't have a bit of breathing room. But I really wanted to capture that momentum in the first month and really keep it trickling through. I believe the story is probably going to come out at about 6 or 7 episodes, which will be about 130 to 150,000 words, which is the longest solo project I've ever written. But I'm enjoying every step of the story. I absolutely love it. The feedback has been tremendous. It's performing how I imagined it would be performing, and I'm excited to see what continues with it from there. I have also been putting together my first ever anthology, which I'm editing, called The Other Side. And that's being published through my company, Devil's Rock Publishing. And the theme for that is anything on the other side of death. And this is the first anthology I've put together, so it's been an interesting experience. I think when I first put it together, I was a bit worried about whether or not there'd be a lack of submissions, how many people would, send quality work in to actually be featured. That's always going to be a worry. And I've been absolutely overwhelmed. I've had over 100 responses. The deadline isn't until the 30th of August, so there's still 5-6 weeks to go. Every day, more submissions are coming through. And what it has done, I think, is given me a unique lens on what it's like to be on this side of the submission process. And I mean, I know that, I've done work for the Other Stories podcast before where we get submissions for different themes and things, but it really feels different doing it for a book. And I very, very quickly identified what I'm going to do differently next time. I've identified very quickly which stories have just been thrown at the wall to see if they stick. And from the side of the publisher putting that out, one tip for anyone who's looking at submitting: be what's the word? Intentional. Be intentional with where you're sending your submissions, because I've read quite a few stories that are nearly 10,000 words in length, and I've been waiting for that moment where it twists and gives me the theme that the entire anthology is predicated around, and then I don't get it, and then I'm sat there thinking, okay, I've just wasted 20 minutes, half an hour of my life reading a story that literally has no connection with what I'm trying to produce here. So I might do an extended episode. I might do something about the anthology process afterwards. If you fancy that, reach out and let me know, and I can put something together for you, because it's definitely been an experience, and I can see where I've messed up in the past, but also a lot of common things that people could probably do themselves to increase their chances of making sure they get submitted if they are choosing to try and get a short story into an anthology. In non-fiction news, I wanted to say thanks to everyone. It's been a month or so since Collaboration for Authors has launched. Thank you to everyone who's picked up a copy. Thank you to everyone that's reviewed or sent me positive words. People who have enjoyed it. Once again, thank you to everyone that got involved in the actual book itself. You guys are fantastic. And I want to say as well, for anyone who hasn't yet heard it, I did appear this week, or last week it will be, last Friday, on the Self-Publishing Show with Mark Dawson and James Blatch. And in that episode, I give an overview of everything I'm doing with sort of horror, everything with the other stories, and also a lot about the Collaboration book itself and some of the key takeaways that I think are fundamental for people getting involved in efficient and successful collaboration. So definitely check it out. I'll pop a link in the show notes. But James, Mark, if you're listening, thanks for having me. It was a blast. And I hope people got a lot of value from that. I'm also chipping away still at my productivity book, basically just percolating, letting the ideas come. I've got a mind map behind me about all of the different sections that I'm going to include, some of the key points. I'm yet to form some kind of structure. I don't have much of a timeline in it. I do feel like I want to get it out before Christmas. But yeah, so that's still being worked on. I definitely want it to be not so much a here's how to write lots of words book. I want it to be useful, holistic, practical in terms of finding ways that writers can take tiny parts of their life and just improve their outputs, because that's essentially what I've spent the last 5-6 years dedicating my life to, and has gotten me to where I am. So I want to take those lessons and give it to people in a way that you can individualize and take away from yourself. So that's on its way, and just chipping away at that project. As mentioned a little earlier, this week's guest is the incredible KRISTINA Rienze. She's someone who I hadn't come across before, someone who I thoroughly enjoyed speaking to. I think we're on a very similar wavelength. For anyone that likes my ramblings about mindset and positivity and trying to think of better ways to better yourself, KRISTINA definitely proved in this interview that she is a sucker, a glutton for punishment. She specifically seeks out criticism, feedback, which I think is admirable and definitely one of the most effective ways to improve your writing. She goes into her processes between writing her first thriller into her latest books. She talks all about her writing coaching business, in which she coaches writers through the whole process of writing itself. So not specifically editing, not specifically proofreading or any of that kind of stuff, but literally being there as a cheerleader, as a support for writers. We dive very, very deeply into mindset, and I think there's some fantastic takeaways there. And also finish up the conversation with something that I've never heard before, which is how you can get your book pitched to an agent through Twitter. I'll say no more on that. You'll have to listen until later on the episode to find out, but I found that absolutely fascinating, and I think it's a fantastic way for anyone looking to try and get their work pitched to someone. Not that it could be the future, it's already here, but I think it's definitely one avenue that sounds very successful in terms of getting your book out there and noticed by agents and publishers. So check that out when it comes. No new patrons this week, but for anyone that's interested in supporting the show and getting a lot more value, including early access to episodes, ad-free access to episodes, and entry into our Slack community group, then go over to www.patreon.com/greatwritershare, and there you can pledge for as little as $1 a month to get involved and get all that good stuff. So www.patreon.com/greatwritershare. And thank you to everyone who is currently a patron and has continued to be a patron even through these difficult and trying times with coronavirus. I love you all. And now, without any further ado, let's dive into the interview with the one and the only KRISTINA Rienze. KRISTINA Rienze is a Jersey Shore local, new adult author, certified professional coach, and the former president of Sisters in Crime Central, Jersey. An INFJ who dreams beyond big, KRISTINA encourages others and herself to embrace the unknown through her stories about fierce women risking their lives to become who they were always meant to be. When she's not writing or drinking wine, KRISTINA is spoiling her 3 fur beasts, dissecting true crime stories, singing and dancing to yacht rock radio, or rooting for the WV Mountaineers. She believes in all things paranormal, a closet full of designer bags, weekly manicures, the law of attraction, aliens, angels, and the value of a graduate degree in psychology. KRISTINA, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. What a great introduction.
No, I'm excited to have you. I want to dive straight into a little bit that I plucked out of the intro, which is your belief in the paranormal, because I'm always massively curious about this. So are there any particular moments or experiences that you've had with the paranormal that have fueled your belief?
That's so funny you say that. There's so many things that I have just experienced in terms of just feeling like something was kind of off. Nothing like I haven't seen an apparition or anything like that. But I feel like there's so much that we don't know. And I think being open to whatever is possible, that's just like the way I live my life, is that I'm open to knowing I don't know everything. And so I'm always curious. And I think I try to approach life with curiosity, which I think just in general is really a healthy way to look at the world, right? Just ask questions, get to understand the way things are. And certainly anything that's not normal, I'm interested in, because I want to know why, and do things truly exist or not. But yeah, I definitely have gone places where I felt like something's there. I don't know what, but I could, you feel kind of different. And I don't know, I feel like I've been a little sensitive at times to that. So yeah, I'm open. Basically, I'm open. I'm open to whatever maybe.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I think it's ignorant to believe that we know everything. And
Sure.
there are certainly forces at work that are just unexplainable.
Yeah.
That's, like you say, that's just a part of life. And curiosity is obviously something that's quite fundamental to fueling a writer's imagination. So tell me a little bit about how your journey into writing became to be and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So I always all my life, I loved writing stories. I mean, as kids, you get into the creative mind, right? You have an imagination. And I wrote short stories and things like that. But when you get older, at least for me, life gets in the way, right? You have to get a job, you go to school, you have responsibilities. And that imagination, at least I've seen, in my experience, kind of fades, right? So I don't know. It was funny. I had been exploring writing again. I had like a bug. Like I would say it was like almost like a voice in my head that said, you need to write. Like it's time to write again. It was about 2010. And I'm like, where is this coming from? I haven't written fiction in so long. And so the first thing I did was by nature, I'm a curious person. I'm a learner. I like to learn. I love school. If I could go to school forever, I would. So I decided, I want to learn how to write again because I haven't really written fiction in a long time. So I joined a local writer group. I got to know some of the writers there that had been published, some hadn't. And basically it was a critique group. So we would submit something every week and it would be critiqued. And they were really tough critiquers, and I like that because I like feedback that's honest and I want to know what I'm doing wrong so I can get better. That's one of the things I enjoy about writing is that you are always getting feedback, right? Be it from your editor or a reviewer. And so I started down that road. So 2010, and then I got an idea for a novel. I wrote the novel probably 7 times because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. It's just how that goes. I just wanted to get it right. And I would say by 2014, I think that was the year where I got picked up by a small press publisher for my debut novel, Choosing Evil. And they also took the sequel, Breaking Evil. And from that point on, I just started writing more and more as much as I could. As much as I could find time to, which, isn't always easy for writers.
No, absolutely. And I know that you mentioned before we were on air that you've got a 10-month-old that you're trying to navigate all this craziness around. So how do you find your writing process looks at the minute? What hours in the day do you actually get to write and put the words on paper?
It's terrible. I'm just going to be honest. It's whenever I can get a minute. Because of the pandemic, we're all home right now. So I'm home. My husband's home. So thankfully I have some help with the baby. But yeah, I tend to find an hour here or there. I used to write in the early morning. I would get up at 5 a.m. and that's my writing time. That's like my gold time. Like my best and fastest writing would come out in first thing in the morning. But with a baby, I can't do that. So now I'm finding that when the workday is done, I'll take about an hour or 2 hours, whatever I can get to extend the day a little bit and, make sure my husband's okay with that, not giving him a break. And that's when I find my time to write. But it's really hard to find. And I will say, I have to be honest, I beat myself up about it. And I have to know that I can't do that. That's not okay. You got to be kind to yourself. So, I just honestly grab the time when I can.
No, it's absolutely something that's difficult. When I first started writing, I think my son must have been about 8 or 9 months old as well. And
wow.
I don't know why that was a point in which I started writing, but you really have to grab those stolen moments and try and get the words in. What is it that spurs you on at a point where a lot of people would, and probably rightly so, just say, all right, I'm going to cut writing for a while I focus on a kid and give yourself a bit of a rest. What is it that keeps you writing and goes, no, I'm going to power through? Because I love listening to people's motivations and why they do power through this stuff, because there is something enchanting about writing that just keeps people coming back to the page.
It's very funny because I can't tell you how many times a day that thought comes to my mind. Like, give up, be done. You're done. Stop. You have other things. And I think what it is it's the one thing. So I'm an introvert by nature. I mean, I'm very outgoing. I can be social, but I am an introvert by nature. I get my energy from being alone and from those quiet moments, right? Which are hard to find. It gives me back my quiet time. It allows me to dive into things that I don't do during the day because I'm so focused in a million directions. It's like a piece of me that I'm fulfilling. It's almost like my self-care. And I think that's important. And some people, they work out, some people paint, some people go running. Writing is what I do. And even if it's writing a post for a website, or writing a newsletter, or writing fiction, I need that to just regenerate who I am and to be the best person I can be when I'm doing everything else I do.
It's very easy to be swallowed into the parent mentality of, doting on every single thing your child does.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it your first child?
Yes, it is. It is.
It's a big shift in foundations and life and everything else. It's hard. I remember early on, like I say, when my son was young, just every stolen moment of trying to get up early. And I didn't actually start doing the early mornings until he was probably about a year old at least, and was sleeping pretty regularly. But I completely agree. There's definitely an element of taking back a little of what's yours from the chaos of being a parent and the reality of being a parent. It's
the hardest job I've ever had. And I've had a lot of difficult jobs. It's the best job, but it's really, really hard. And I can see why it's just something that, people need a little bit of themselves in the parenthood realm, because you can get sucked in, and I love it. I mean, I would spend every waking moment with my daughter if I could. And I'm not the kind of, everybody's different. There's no right or wrong, but I enjoy it. I'm grateful for every moment I have with her. And so I feel like there's a little bit of guilt there when I don't, but I also know she's with my husband. So it's not like, I feel good about that too. They're spending time together. But yeah, it is hard to prioritize yourself when you're caring for another human being and trying to raise another human being. And, but I do think it's really important that we all take care of ourselves, because, you can't really be there for anybody if you're not giving yourself what you need, even if what you need is a walk, time alone, a conversation with a friend, or writing, whatever it is.
How do you find negotiating that time with your husband? Is it fairly easy, or is there some friction sometimes?
It's not difficult. It's more about me feeling guilty and to ask. And so sometimes I just, the way I present it isn't always the most kind, meaning I will be like, I have to do this. I got to get this done. And I feel like I put pressure on both of us when it really doesn't need to be that way. I think he's always ready to, willing to help and to give me what I need. As same as I for him. But I think because the way I present it is from my own guilt, from a place of my own guilt, for him and also for me, that I think I could do a better job at just saying, hey, is it, I'm going to write for a half hour, an hour, and being a little bit more positive about it versus making it a stressor thing. And that's because that's where I'm coming from. And I recognize that's not, that's something I could do better for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a lot of links back to former experiences of mine. The reason I am digging quite into this, like you say, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm aware of a few writer friends of mine who are in very, very similar situations in which they've got young kids and they're having to balance, family life and work and everything else around looking after the child and trying to get things done at this turbulent time. And I think that guilt is something that affects everyone, and I'm not sure what the answer to it is, because I'm not sure it ever goes, but trying to find a way to handle it is very, very key. And it sounds like you've got some kind of grasp, at least in terms of trying to, make sure that you are still getting your me time.
Yeah, I do. I try. I'm not as good as I should be about it, but I notice that when I don't have time to myself, I'm not the person I want to be. And it's really important for me to show up the way that I want to show up in life, and be present and be positive and just be there, to listen. Or like, what if my husband needs something? I can't be wrapped up in all of me all the time, or the baby. So I feel like, for me to get what I need, like for my husband, it's, maybe going and doing yard work or doing a project. Like that's where he gets his, his happiness and his, his alone time. And like, this is what it is for me. So yeah, I agree with you. There is guilt, but I also think we need to know we're doing what's right for us to be the best parent, the best spouse, the best person we can be.
Absolutely. Let's jump back a little bit into something you mentioned about your early parts of your journey. You spoke about being a part of a critique group, which for someone who is introverted, I would assume would be the furthest thing from something that you'd get value from. But obviously that was something that you benefited massively from. You said there about being a perpetual learner and really, really enjoying that feedback. But what was it initially that took you from solo writer into seeking out a writing group?
So yeah, it's funny you say that, because I find when like the whole embrace the unknown tagline that I use, it really comes full circle for me, because I tend to throw myself in situations I'm uncomfortable with so that I can figure out how to not be uncomfortable. And I don't realize that about myself till after the fact. Like when I'm doing it, I'm like, why am I torturing myself? I'm going into a room and writing something for a bunch of people who are experienced. I'm not, and I'm going to get torn apart. And why am I doing this to myself? But I realize about myself, because I am a perpetual learner, that is how I grow. I get feedback. I get like advice. I'm like willing to put myself out there and to be kind of beat up, so to speak, because I want to do better. And so I think I did that looking back for that reason. I mean, I was in it for a few years, and at a point in time, it wasn't helpful anymore. And I moved on to like bigger writer groups where there were more resources. It wasn't just sitting around a table critiquing. It was all different kinds of things, workshops, education, that the more what I needed at that point. But yeah, I think I made a decision, and this is another thing that I do. Like I'll make a decision about something and then I go for it. It's like once I've decided, it's already happened. It's already done. I already wrote the book, but I didn't put a word on the page. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to do this, and I needed to throw myself. If I didn't throw myself to the wolves at that point, it never would have happened. I would have gotten stuck behind my desk in my office and never written a thing.
And what was the most valuable part of getting the criticism from that group? Because I've had I've been in a writers group, but it wasn't a critiquing group. It was more of a sort of simulation, everyone come into a room and gather ideas and use stimulus. What is it specifically about that critique group that you got value from?
So relationships and support that I found through them, people I still talk to this day, which are great. Was one piece of it. The other piece of it is that I really got to, I learned from their work what to do and what not to do. I learned so much. It was like a crash course. And I also built some thick skin in writing. Now, I've learned to have thick skin in business and in relationship. But for me, I didn't have that in writing because I had no experience. So I walked away with some real, this isn't about my, how I feel and if I'm embarrassed or if I'm not good at this. This is about getting better. And if I want to write, at that point, my big goal was a novel, which was huge for someone who has only written short stories and years ago. I wanted to do good. And when I look at something as I want to do a good job and I want to do it right, whatever anybody tells me, I'm going to pay attention to. So I think that it just made me a stronger person, which prepared me for later in life when you actually do write a book and people rip it apart and you can kind of go, it isn't, they're not attacking me as a human. They're attacking my product. And you know what? We can always do better with our product. That's definitely part of the process of learning and growing, right?
Yeah, definitely pops a bubble.
Yeah, it's hard. There have been some reviews where I'm like, I quit writing. I quit. I'm deleting my Facebook. I'm terrible. What am I doing? And there are other ones where I'm like, oh, I guess I could write a couple words. I'm not horrible. I just, I never think I'm fantastic, but, I just always think what's going to be the thing that pushes me over the edge and makes me drop out of this whole game. I'm waiting for it, but, hopefully nothing anytime soon.
And what is it that keeps you going in those moments the most? What is it when, because I think we've all been there. We've all been at a point where we've literally just put the pen down or turned off the computer and gone, why the hell am I trying to bash my head against the wall and make this happen? What is it that pulls you through and keeps you going?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think I go to the worst place that everybody goes to. I'm no good. I'm done. This is, why am I doing this? I'm torturing myself. And then I do look for, I know that I have it within myself to bring myself back, but usually in those times it's so bad that I'm really done. I have to call a friend. It's like phone a friend. I literally will call a writer friend that gets it. And I will talk to them. And usually they're the ones that are like, you're being ridiculous. Everybody goes through this. Don't give up. They give me some words of encouragement and remind me who I am, why I'm doing this, and not to let it get to me. And it's the support of the community that helps me because I think writing can be a very lonely thing to do. And writer to writer, we get it. But I think if you try to talk to somebody who isn't a writer about what we go through, it's I'm not saying that they're not empathetic in a different way, but it's not an experience they've had. So I really want to hear from somebody who's been there. And so, yeah, I think it's, I reach out, and then once I get that feedback, I start to kind of talk myself down and go, okay, you're done. Don't look at these reviews anymore. You're fine. Like, just do what you do, and whatever happens, happens. And I do remind myself of that too. Like, I'll say, I don't put pressure on how many sales am I going to get? Is it going to this? Is it going to that? I have my dreams, but I also feel like it's going to do what it's going to do. I'm going to do the best I can, and I cannot force this thing. So let me stop trying to force it, and let me just enjoy it and just do my very best, and just be there for the book and see where it goes.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit earlier as well, we went from the writers group into powering through into that first novel, which was Choosing Evil. What did that process look like for you? How did you step up to the challenge of going from short story to a full-length novel?
Oh my God, it was hard. It was really, 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 really hard. One of the hardest things I've ever done. And I don't know how I did it looking back. I wanted to set it on fire about 10 times. I actually told my editor I was setting it on fire. She's like, no, you're not, it's fine. But I'm like, it has to go, and like, it has to go away. I literally, because I like to learn, I took a bunch of classes. I took online classes. At the time, I went to like the local university, and I took a writing class. I read a bunch of writing books. I just started playing around with it. And then before I even got published, I hired an editor that was really well known by some bigger authors as a freelance. And I'm like, just beat me up, rip it apart, help me. And she did. And she did it several times. And by the time it was done, it was publishable. It took, like I said, about 6 or 7 rewrites because I really didn't know what I was doing. And I wanted to do a good job. And so, yeah, it was hard. I tortured myself, and I literally would sit in my office for 12 hours a day. Now, again, I didn't have babies, so it was easy to just go, I'm going to go in the office all day Saturday. And I would cancel plans. Looking back, I wouldn't do this today, but I would cancel plans with family and friends. I would set stuff on my calendar. I'm going to be in the office Saturday and Sunday writing. Wow. It was literally everything that I was consumed with until it was done. And then once I kind of knew what I was doing, like once you write a novel, it's like you have confidence you could do it again. I didn't need to go that, all in. I always put the work in, but it wasn't like the first time. But that's how I learn. I've got to dive in head first, and I got to immerse myself. And then once I feel comfortable, I can take a step back.
And what was the signifier for you that you were able to say this book is done? Was it the approval from the editor, or was there something else inside you that thought, I've accomplished what I'm trying to accomplish here?
The first one I didn't know, because I would have edited it till this day. But I think it was literally this really tough editor who ripped me apart with every editorial letter, finally said, good job. And I was like, really? And she's like, you can go ahead and, now pitch it or whatever you want to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I was looking for approval because I had no idea. Now, when I'm done with the book, I know I'm done because, again, it's not perfect. Nothing I ever write is. But I feel like I've given it everything I have to give today. Like the writer I am today that's writing the book I'm writing right now, this is the best I can do. And there's no more I can add to it. Like I've gone over it so much and I'm done. I know when I'm done intuitively. But I think, the first book, I didn't know. I didn't know what was right or wrong. And I would have kept going until today. So I needed somebody to say, you're good.
Have you always been so open to your shortcomings, or is there an event that triggered you taking that stance of, being humble and seeking that learning?
Yeah, that's so funny. That's a great question. I feel like I used to beat myself up a lot. And by the way, I grew up in a house where I was very lucky to have 2 parents who loved me very much and encouraged me every step of the way. I could do anything. They never held me back. But I always had very high standards for myself, and I don't know where they came from, quite honestly, because I really think my parents loved me and would have let me be whatever I wanted to be and would have loved. They never said you have to do this, you have to do that. Never. Always whatever I wanted to do was fine. So I don't know where that comes from. I think it was, quite honestly, what I think is I came from a home which we weren't super wealthy. I mean, we were like average, and whatever that is anymore. But I did have people in my life who I looked up to that had a little bit more. And I don't mean like they were rich or anything like that, but it was like my parents always worked really hard to give me everything that I have and to put me through, have my education and all the things. I saw what they went through and how far they got in life. And I always wanted to do that and even beyond. And so I knew in order to do that, I had to work really hard. I had to align myself with the right path. And I had to just always be open to doing better and growing. And when I got into the workforce, my work ethic was incredible because I wanted to just give me more. I want to learn. I want to be promoted. And it wasn't as much about like, I can say like some people go, well, isn't it for the money? It wasn't even the money as much as it was, I wanted to make sure everything my parents did to give me everything I needed wasn't in vain. And that I was able to not only, give them some kind of like, hey, like I'm doing well, but also be there for them, which thankfully, today I am able to, be there for my dad and if he needs anything, I'm here because, I all my life have really just tried to do better and better.
Mm. And it takes a certain type of person to, demand a beating from an editor and to go down all these routes to try and pick apart the weaknesses in what you're doing and try and strengthen you. But I think it's a massively admirable quality. And it's probably worth mentioning as well that you do offer coaching as well for writers. You've got your Write Life coaching for your writing life, which I'm currently looking at on my screen. How much of all this journey obviously plays into the approach that you take when coaching other authors, and what kind of things specifically do you do with when you work with other authors?
I literally, when I got my coaching certification, it took me an entire year to get. It was like a very difficult, it was like another immersive process, right? I learned a lot about myself, and there were things I needed to work out, and work on. So I know the reason I want to align myself with writers specifically is because I know the struggles that we go through, and I know that it isn't just external. There's a lot of internal stuff going on. And so my approach is always, in coaching, the client or the writer that I'm working with has the answer. They know what's best for them. My job is to get that out of them. And my job is to highlight for them what's standing in their way and to help them get over that so they can move on to the next step in whatever their journey is. Because this business isn't an easy business to be in. And certainly it can be lonely. And I even, and through all of my career of just, having a psychology background and working, a lot in that field and counseling and also in the coaching, I know that there's stuff inside of me that I'm still working out all these years later. So, being aware of it is one thing. When you're unaware and you're struggling, it can be very frustrating. So I feel like my job is really to bring clarity to them on what the issues are, be them internal or external, find out what their obstacles are, help them move past them. And the whole thing around it is really like, what do they want? What's their goal? What are they trying to achieve? And let's help you get there. So, and it isn't easy work. And certainly, I've had a coach, and it's like one of the best things that's ever happened to me because it helps me, process things and move forward. But yeah, we can definitely get in our own way. And I think the majority of what's holding us back is getting in our own way, thinking we're not good enough, and really being afraid to take the risk that's going to put us in the next level of where we need to be.
No, I think mindset is probably one of the most undervalued tools that you can have in your writer tool bank. And I think you get a lot of courses, you get a lot of coaching and people who are obviously speaking about upping your craft, working on genre, working on marketing, all that kind of stuff. But the biggest turnaround in my life was probably about five years ago when I started paying attention to mindset. I started seeing a counselor about certain things in my personal life, which then tied into my writing life and my work life.
Sure.
And there's so much of it that can empower you and really make it so that writing can be a full-time career for people. But it's just one of these things that people focus on the craft and not necessarily what's in their own head and how they can get longevity out of what it is they're doing. Are there particular trends or themes that you see that are probably worth people looking into or tackling if they're listening to this and thinking, I've never explored this kind of stuff? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think big ones that, and just talking with writers and what they're struggling with is certainly your inner critic, that self-talk that's negative about I'm not good enough, who am I to be successful, just really exploring that. And that, by the way, that could be, years of coaching, or it could be, you have an aha moment, I mean, it's different for everybody. And then also comparing yourself and really feeling like you're in it, you're so happy, you're grateful for your friend, but your friend who got the deal or got the big #1 New York Times bestseller list or whatever it is that you wanted, that you're not as good as they are. And that ties back into the inner critic, but really it's very specific, where I think it's a comparison thing for writers, where we compare ourselves inadvertently to others and their journey. And just like, and I tell people this all the time, just like in life, right? Which it's really hard because we're all so similar, but our journeys are all unique. Your writer journey is yours. No one else's. So just because this one got an agent and this one did this, maybe you don't get an agent. Maybe you you self-publish a book that goes to, becomes a movie. Like, who knows what your journey is? But trying to compare yourself to someone else because that's what you see and what you want. You're not being true to what is right for you. Your path is your path. And I think everybody, if we could all just stay on our path and know that, whatever is meant for us, and I believe this too, this has gotten me through a lot in life. Whatever is meant for us is coming for us. It's coming for us, and it's not meant for anybody else. But if you don't get that thing, whatever that thing is, it wasn't yours to have. What's yours is out there. So I tell myself that a lot because I know, like, I've had opportunities that I've thought, why me? Why do I have this? Why doesn't this person have it? They're better than me. Or other things have happened to people where I'm like, why not me? And that's just not how it works. I think the way that it works is, you work hard, you do your thing, and the best that you can. Obviously, be a good person, be supportive, be whoever you are. But know that if an opportunity comes your way, it is your opportunity. It belongs to you, and embrace it. Because that's hard too. It's embracing what being afraid to be successful is huge. It's huge. Yes. That imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. Take it a step further with a writer. Being afraid of success. That is huge. And that is real. And people go, oh, what do you mean? Of course, everybody wants to be successful. No, success comes with a price, and it comes with a lot of different levels, and it can be scary. And we hold ourselves back from that because we're afraid. What if? Okay, this sounds great. I'm going to joke about it. I'm going to joke about my book becoming a movie. The day someone calls me to say it's happening, I'm terrified. Like, really? And everyone's going to say that my book was horrible. And why is that book a movie? And like, who are you to have this success? It's like, you're so afraid of what people are going to think and what they're going to say, and that you don't deserve it. We don't go for things.
Yeah, that cuts right to the very heart of me.
Yeah, right?
because it's absolutely true. Yeah, no, I mean, there are so many situations where I know that I've done it in my own personal life where I've got the skills to get to the next level. Even when it was in my old day job, I got the skills to actually go up and obviously get promoted and all that kind of stuff. But you never truly believe that next step is within your grasp. And there's always, I don't know what it is about people and the human condition, about just setting that limited belief that you can only go so far, and seeing other people excel and thinking that that's some kind of outlier that you'll never quite get to. It's burdensome to try and live with that sometimes.
It is. And I'll tell you what, everybody has it. It's just how does it show up for you? And I think one of the ways is really, it's a protector. That thing that's saying don't go for it is protecting you from your own fears of whatever. You're afraid of being successful. You're afraid of exposure. You're afraid of, like, again, the whole imposter syndrome, which you're not an imposter. You are the only you there is. You're not impostoring anybody. But we all have that. And I think it was funny. I was in a training because I'm always looking, we talked about improving. I'm in a leadership training right now. And one of the things I learned was the difference between, it's actually Brene Brown, Dare to Lead.
Oh, yes.
And if anybody, she's amazing. And one of the things I learned that I'm hanging on to as my issue is the difference between hustling for your value and knowing your value, right? We all go through this. Like, I'm constantly trying to prove my worth when I just need to know what I'm bringing to the table, and not feel like I've got to prove it. That doesn't mean you don't have to work hard and do your part, but my point is, I think we all, in some way, shape, or form, struggle with hustling to say, oh, see, I got that thing happened, so now I'm worthy. Now I'm worthy. Now I'm worthy. It's like, you're always worthy. Like, and just embracing that. It's a hard thing to do. It's definitely not easy, but it's something that, we work on lifelong. I mean, it doesn't, go away. Just because you know about it doesn't mean it's going to change. You're working on it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we're grown up. We're brought up trying to, or how do I word this? We're brought up relying on other people's validation for so much. You just get into that habit of, from school, everything's graded and you're given your value by a letter, and then you come out of school and you're in a job and everything's graded by assessments or reviews, and only the good thrive and all that kind of stuff. So you can forgive people for getting into that mindset of needing that external validation, but you're absolutely right. And I think that's something that you definitely get when you get older and you get more comfortable in. Or I guess as well, when you achieve more, you suddenly realize that there's always going to be a something else. So is it worth always chasing that something else just to make you feel better for 5 minutes?
Yeah. And that was a great, I know that everything you were saying is true, but I never heard it said that way. And you're absolutely right. We've grown to learn that external validation is important. And that if people don't like you, somehow that's your fault. And if you didn't do a good job, shame on you. And so, yeah, you're right. It's like through learning that we are all worthy and we all deserve whatever good that comes to us. And some people have to work harder for it than others. And some people do have lucky breaks. In some areas, like there are parts of my life that I feel like I've gotten a lucky break. Like my daughter, I never thought I was going to have children. She was a complete surprise to me.
Amazing.
And it was a blessing. I lost my mom and missed my mom terribly. And I bring this up because she is like a miracle child. Okay. And perfect and healthy and beautiful and wonderful and loving. And I never, ever thought I was going to be a parent. And so for me, I know that there are people who struggle with infertility. And so there's like, that was a blessing that was given to me. And let me tell you something, when I found out I was pregnant, I literally was like, I felt guilty. Like this was just given to me. Like this gift was just given to me. And other people fight so hard for this. And I feel so guilty. And everyone's like, you shouldn't feel guilty. This is your thing. This is a blessing. Of course, it's all those things. But I think in life, when things happen to you that are positive and seemingly out of nowhere, and other people are fighting for it, I feel guilty. And I think I had to get away from that and just go, you know what? I need to embrace the life I was given, and I need to be grateful every moment and know how lucky and blessed and grateful I am. And maybe, this is the thing that was my gift. Right. And maybe when I thought I wanted something else, that's not going to happen for me, but I'm getting what I need. They always say, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. There's like everything a Rolling Stones song, but, it doesn't mean you give up on your dreams. It just means that we have to learn to be kind to ourselves and to appreciate the things that come to us that are meant for us, and just be grateful. And yes, work hard for the other stuff because that keeps us motivated and moving. And another thing on goals, I just want to mention, because I'm also taking, I'm sure you're shocked, a happiness studies course, which is really the science behind well-being. But one thing I did learn there, which has been helpful too, it's like when we set a goal, and I think about this as a writer, right? When we set a goal, it's not achieving that goal that gives us the joy. It's the process of achieving the goal. It's called, the pursuit of happiness. You never really think about it, but truly the pursuit of happiness is happiness. That's where we feel good. So even if my book never becomes a #1 New York Times bestseller, or I don't make millions of dollars as a writer, the pursuit, writing it, the experience is what's bringing me joy. And that's what I have to focus on.
That's definitely the key to keeping longevity in this game as it is enjoying the process and making sure that you're just having fun along the way, because otherwise you're just living for those brief dopamine hits that just disappear the next day and it all starts over again. I kind of want to flip a little bit of some of the stuff that you said on its head and ask, have you ever encountered a situation in which someone has come to you for coaching advice and you've had to, in one way or another, deter's the wrong word, but discourage them from actually pursuing writing? Because, we all do have things that we are better at than other things. And I'm a person of the growth mindset that believes that we can all get good at one thing or another. But have you ever had anyone where you've had to say to someone, maybe this isn't the path that you should be pursuing?
I would never tell anyone what to do or what's right or wrong, but I will tell you that when you get honest about what it looks like, people will make decisions really quick. So I'm sure, as a writer, everybody has a book in them, right? When you're an author, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have this great idea for a book, or like a friend of a friend of a friend wants to write a book, and who wants to write a book, and can I write you? It's like everyone you ever knew, and like out of nowhere, like just because you're writing, like all of a sudden you're an expert. And I'm no expert, by the way. But yeah, I think when people know that it isn't like I sit down on my computer, I write a book, I publish it, I make millions, it's that easy. The real motivation behind it comes out. And I think the people who realize it's not like a cash cow all of a sudden, will shy away from it. And I think it's not me necessarily saying don't do this, but me saying, like, asking the questions, what is you're like, why do you want this? What are you looking to put into it? What are, where do you want this to go? What is it about writing that you enjoy? What are your goals? And then, when the tough questions come up, and sometimes outside of coaching, just in conversation, it's about questions that come up about, what you're going through. Or someone tries it and goes, oh my God, this is really hard. This is difficult. This is work. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
They are, they weren't in it for the right reasons. But I think the people who are in it for the right reasons, it's really like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you're okay with that, then there's no time limit. Like, you just go at your own pace and you do it your way. But there's also no guarantee. So, not to discourage anybody, but there's no guarantee. But if you love writing and you love the process and this is something that brings you joy, then you should do it no matter what. So I guess that's hopefully I answered your question, but I think, many people are surprised at how much work it is. And they don't realize you can't just write a book and go find a publisher. Like, I literally have had people say like, okay, I want to write a book and get an agent. How do I do that? And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Do you have 3 hours to just start the conversation? And then, or, whatever, or I want to self-publish my book and, how do I, sell 1 million copies? It's like, if then you need to tell me, because I'm still trying to figure it out. But yeah, so, and that is why, like, back to your original question about why I push myself and I want the feedback. I know how hard it is to write a really good book. I also know I'm a better writer in 5 years than I am today. I'm going to be a better writer, right? And I'm a better writer than I was 5 years ago. So I respect the work that goes into writing a good book. And it's really it doesn't come super easy to everybody.
Now, I'm sure there are probably people in my audience that are thinking, do you take coaching clients at the minute? And how would people get involved in having you as a coach? So do you have any information on that?
Yeah, I haven't been of late because I've been so busy with just everything with the baby and so forth. But yeah, I'm always open if anybody wants to join my writing group, my writers coaching group on Facebook, and we can talk. That's always the best place to get me. You can always email me at KRISTINA RIENZE author at gmail.com. But certainly Write Life is my Facebook group for coaching and for writers. But a simple email is fine too, if you want to just chat a little bit about the process and what it looks like. But that group is really, it's a free group. It's just where, we can kind of get together, motivate, inspire each other, and deal with any issues that, we may be having, just as a community.
Beautiful. Circling this back a little bit then into your fiction and your own writing journey, we've obviously covered the 7 times you had to rewrite your initial novel. How has your process? How was your process? We've all been there. My first novella was 16,000 words, and it went for about 17 different alterations.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
yes.
we all get caught in it. But how has your process changed from that first book to your most recent works?
Yeah, it was struggle to find my way. I didn't know if I was a plotter or a pantser or what. Like, I didn't know. When you're starting something, you don't know what you don't know. So through just trial and error and feeling out what's comfortable, I now I'll loosely plot a story. So I usually have an idea of what the story is about. Primarily, I don't know everything that's going to happen, but I'll have an idea of who the main character is, what the topic is, what the issues are, and kind of where I want it to go, what I'm exploring with a book, right? And I try to dive into things that I'm afraid of or that I'm curious about. And I loosely plot. And what I use is Save the Cat. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's a screenwriting technique. Yeah. So, and now actually they have it developed into for novel writers, but way before they did that, I was using the screenwriting technique and trying to kind of dissect it so it was for a book. And I would plug it into, I use Scrivener. So I plug it into Scrivener. I have my, every chapter, every beat in there loosely. And then I'm open to change. And I really just try to write to the next beat. And so I'll do that. And I do a very skeletal first draft where I'm not editing anything. I'm just getting the story out skeletal. It's not a lot of words, but the story's out. Mm-hmm. Then I go back and I beef it up and I fill in the blanks. I also have a notes on the side where I'm saying weave in this topic or this issue happened in this chapter. Go back and make it, weave it through with a story so that it's believable. And yeah, I go through that. And then once it's done, I mean, I'll go through it myself several times before I'll pass it on. If I'm indie publishing it, I'll pass it on to an editor that I've chosen that works with the genre I'm writing in, which, by the way, I write all new adult thriller, but I have different genres, like subgenres.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, but if I'm doing the other way around, yeah, I make sure that it's in the best shape that I think it can be. I may have an editor do a pass at it. I may have like some writer friends do a beta read, and then I would start pitching it, to publishers and agents, and either I'll go on Agent Query and find, out who's taking submissions for what I'm writing. I've also done Twitter pitches, which have worked for me. Believe it or not, I've gotten a publisher that way. Yeah. And actually any person I know, this is funny that now you say that, because I have people who've been submitting to agents and publishers for years. Twitter has been a success.
How? I've never heard of this. So how does this work?
It's really, so basically there are a bunch of different hashtags that occur during the year for pitches. So PitMad, PITMAD, is a huge one. And that one, I think that's the one I used. Anyway, so you're allowed to pitch so many blurbs, like a quick little pitch, right? An hour. I think it's like one an hour. And then you can only repeat. There's like rules around it, basically.
Yeah.
You can, so you'll pick like one an hour. You can only do two different ones or whatever. And you can do them hourly throughout the day. And it's certain days of the year. So if you hashtag PitMad, for example, there's tons of them out there. It'll give you the rules and when the next one is. And basically you just play the game. You go on, you put your little pitch in, you put your hashtags. Now you have to hashtag PitMad, but you also have to hashtag the genre. You have to hashtag, like if it's adult, young adult, new adult, whatever their requirements are. And if an agent or publisher likes it, like literally hits the little heart, that means they want more information. And when they do that, you go onto their website. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt, and you find out what their submission requirements are and you submit to them. But I have had a lot of success that way. And I have friends who've gotten really great agents that way.
This is amazing. I've literally never heard of this in my life. So this is kind of baffling, but it's
a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun because Twitter, is crazy and fast paced, and it overwhelms me personally as an introvert. I'm like, I can't even go on Twitter. I feel bad that I don't go on as much as I probably should as a writer, but I get overwhelmed. But when it's something like this, Twitter. Right? It's too much. It's like all this information coming at me and I feel like I need to delete it. But when there's a reason, like if I'm doing a pitching thing or whatever, I'll go on and it's like the whole day, then you become obsessed. Like I get my pitches ready in advance. I have them drafted and it's like the top of the hour and you shoot it out and then you're like stalking the Twitter to see who liked it. And then you're researching who are these people? Like, is this an agent? And somebody's going to like you're never going to really, I don't know. There's somebody's going to like something that you put out there. But yeah.
How many of your books have been picked up that way?
So my first series was picked. So Choosing Evil and Breaking Evil was picked up that way. Also, I got a lot of hits on Among Us, but I literally, this is funny. I was working on the audiobook and I got a call from a friend who works with Audible, and Audible wanted to publish Among Us as an audiobook and use it as an example for ACX University, which is a training website for authors.
That's
so incredible. I literally it had to be published. And they're like, you need to publish your book. I'm like, well, wait a minute. It's out there. I've been sending it to agents and they're like, if you want this opportunity, you need. So it was published. I indie published it. And so I don't know what would have happened to it. Maybe it would have gone somewhere else or done something different, but I did want that opportunity. And so, yeah, that was a great opportunity, but yeah, so I would say two have had pretty good success. And the others I didn't even try with. I honestly was like, oh, they're novellas. I'm going to indie publish them.
Yeah.
But I would do that. I would actually do that before you put yourself through the query stressor. That's level 2. That's after the people say they like it. You can do that. I would do Twitter before anything else because I feel like when people have this PitMad or whatever, there's so many out. I'm only highlighting that because that's the one that I think is very popular and a lot of people get success with, but there's tons out there that people are doing. There's genre specific ones. There's all different kinds. When people do these Twitter pitches, there are agents and editors sitting by watching. Like they're literally in that moment scrolling for good ideas. So they're staring it down and reading everything going, oh, I like this. I like that. And so you're getting access. And by the way, you don't know who's out there. So you don't have to pick and choose. They're picking you. it's awesome. It really is.
It sounds like a really good answer to the whole, because I can imagine that particularly today we live in an economy where editors and agents are just flooded with a slush pile of things that, you know, people are sending in and things they have to get through. And it seems like a really smart way, really, just to put a couple of days aside and go, all right, let's get attacked with an onslaught of blurbs and see if anything takes our fancy. I can almost imagine as well a group of writers sitting in a room together and almost seeing it like a fantasy football draft and just seeing who gets picked up on what.
You have to see me and my friends. We literally will be like texting like, and we'll be like, this one liked it. And it's like, did you get any hits? And we're looking for each other. And like, you know, it gets crazy. It's fun. Let me tell you, it brings positivity to this whole process, which can be daunting, especially when you send out submissions, and rightfully so, they're inundated and you may never hear back. And, you know, not hearing back is a no. But sometimes the not knowing is like unsettling because you're like, did they get it? Did they not like it? I mean, I just assume they didn't like it, but I feel like the Twitter pitching creates an element of like excitement, fun. It's almost like you're just, not that like I'm promoting gambling by any means, because I don't even gamble, but it's almost like that intermittent reinforcement. That's so, you know, the psychology person in me is going to go down that road, but it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding, right? And you're like, who's going to pick it? And it's fun. And you help, and as writers, we help each other with our pitches. And I think there are some rules where you can actually share. You can share each other's pitches and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, you have to look into them. But yeah, I would say it's fun, and it makes it a positive experience versus like you behind your computer sweating because you just hit send and you're like, was there a typo? And they're analyzing everything, and now I'm freaking out. You know.
This sounds amazing. I'm definitely gonna have to check this out.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, I will do. We are unfortunately coming up close to time. I do have one main question before I go into our quick fire round. And that question for you is, why, Kristina Rienze, do you write?
Oh, why do I write? Because I want to explore things that I'm afraid of. I want to learn about things. And, you know, through my books, I get to learn some things too. And I really want to challenge myself and my readers to, I always say embrace the unknown, but truly to be able to go in through my story and triumph over an obstacle and feel like they've won too. Like that's the positive at the end of the dark path of my, you know, my stories. But I want some kind of collective escape and a collective feeling of I can do it.
Beautiful. Perfectly put. Okay, so we'll dive into the quick fire round, which is 10 questions. I'm going to throw at you as quickly as possible. It's all in fun. You can pass. And are you ready?
Sure, I guess. I don't know. No, but I'm going to go anyway.
Jack Ryan or Jack Reacher?
Jack Reacher.
Favorite genre of music?
It would have to be yacht rock, which is mid-tempo, 70s, 80s.
Nice. Preferred sandwich filling of choice?
Tuna.
Preferred pizza topping?
Sausage.
Who was the last writer to make you cry?
Oh, Jodi Picoult.
What's your favorite fashion brand?
I pass. I can't think. I don't know.
How many languages
Oh,
can you
wait,
speak?
Louis Vuitton are the bags anyway. Go ahead.
Nice. How many languages can you speak?
One well.
Dream holiday destination?
Hawaii.
You can pick one item to be stranded with on a desert island. What is it?
A bottle of wine.
What are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading Dare to Lead.
Beautiful. And that's 10 questions. One bonus question. Where can my listeners find out everything about yourself and all that you're working on?
On my website. It's KRISTINARIENZE.com.
Beautiful. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It's actually been a blast chatting to you. Very, very uplifting. I've got a few things to come away and research after this, which is always fun for me. So thank you for your time.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And thank you everyone for listening, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Great Writer Share podcast. Next week, I'll be joined by Brummy horror superstar Ian Rob Wright. And don't forget you can get early access to every episode of the Great Writer Share podcast and the chance to ask upcoming guests any of your questions just by becoming a patron of the show. All you need to do is visit www.patreon.com/greatwritershare and support the show for as little as $1 a month. One more time, that's www.patreon.com/greatwritershare. Until next time.